Have you ever been at a party, holding a plastic cup of something lukewarm, smiling politely while someone says, "So, what do you do?" And inside your head, you're thinking, can we skip this level and go straight to the part where we talk about what keeps you up at night? If that's you, you're not rude. You're not antisocial. You're not too intense. You just prefer depth over surface. And there's real psychology behind that. Because on the outside, people who avoid small talk often get labeled as shy, awkward, or even arrogant. But the truth? Many of them aren't afraid of conversation. They're hungry for a different kind of it. Let me show you why. Imagine two types of conversations. One is like snacking on chips. Light, crunchy, easy. You can eat a lot of it without thinking. That's small talk. Weather, traffic, weekend plans. It's social glue. It keeps interaction smooth. The other type is like a slow-cooked meal. You sit down, you take your time, you taste the layers. That's a deep conversation. It's about fears, dreams, meaning, childhood memories. Why you believe what you believe. Some people can happily live on chips all day. Others feel malnourished without that slow-cooked meal. If you're the second type, your brain may simply be wired to crave psychological depth. Research on personality, especially the trait called openness to experience, originally studied in the work of psychologists like Paul Costa and Robert McCrae, shows that some people naturally seek complexity. They enjoy abstract ideas, emotional nuance, and exploring different perspectives. For them, conversation isn't just social exchange, it's mental exploration. Small talk feels repetitive, predictable, scripted. Deep conversation feels alive, but there's more going on than just personality. Think about the last time you had a truly meaningful conversation. Maybe it was 1 a.m., you were sitting on a couch or in a car. Someone opened up about something vulnerable, and suddenly the air changed. It felt real. That real feeling isn't imaginary. When we have vulnerable, emotionally honest conversations, our brains release oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical involved in trust and attachment. Depth accelerates connection. Small talk builds safety slowly. Deep talk builds intimacy quickly. For someone who craves emotional closeness, small talk can feel like standing outside the house knocking politely when what they really want is to be invited into the living room. And here's something interesting. People who prefer deep conversations often have high levels of emotional sensitivity. They notice subtle shifts in tone, micro-expressions, the pause before someone answers. Their brains are constantly scanning for meaning beneath the words. So when the conversation stays on the surface, it feels like listening to music with the volume turned down. They can sense there's more there, but it's not being expressed. Now let's talk about introversion for a second. Not all deep conversation lovers are introverts, but many are. And according to research inspired by psychologists like Carl Jung, introverts tend to recharge through reflection rather than stimulation. Small talk often requires quick responses, social energy, and surface-level performance. It can feel like mental multitasking. Deep conversation, on the other hand, allows them to slow down, to think, to explore one topic fully instead of skimming 10. It's not about hating people. It's about hating shallowness. But here's the twist. Preferring deep conversation doesn't mean you're better than people who enjoy small talk. Small talk has a purpose. Anthropologists believe it acts as social lubrication. It signals safety. It says, "I'm not a threat." It creates predictable patterns that help strangers feel comfortable. It's like stretching before a workout. The problem happens when someone who craves depth feels trapped in the stretching phase forever. If you've ever thought, why does everyone else seem satisfied talking about nothing? You might have felt lonely in rooms full of people. That loneliness is important because often people who seek depth aren't just looking for interesting topics. They're looking to be seen. There's a quiet fear underneath. If we stay on the surface, you'll never really know me. And maybe even deeper. If you really knew me, would you stay? Psychologist Brené Brown has spent years studying vulnerability. Her research shows that meaningful connection requires emotional risk. You have to reveal something real, something imperfect, something human. People who prefer deep conversations are often more willing, consciously or unconsciously, to take that risk. They'd rather skip the performance and go straight to authenticity, but that can backfire. Not everyone feels safe diving deep quickly. For some, deep questions from a near stranger can feel intrusive, like someone opening drawers in their house without asking. So if you're someone who loves depth, you might have experienced this confusing pattern. You open up, you ask meaningful questions, and the other person pulls back. It's not that you're too much. It's that depth requires mutual timing. Think of it like swimming. You might love the deep end, but others need to wade in slowly. They need to test the temperature, build trust in inches. Now here's another layer. People who prefer deep conversations often think a lot. They reflect on their own behavior. They analyze life events. They replay conversations in their heads. Their inner world is rich. When your internal world feels like a library, small talk feels like reading the back of a cereal box. You don't dislike connection, you just want substance. And sometimes there's also a history component. If someone grew up feeling misunderstood, they may have developed a strong desire to be truly known. Surface level interactions can unconsciously trigger that old feeling of invisibility. So they search, almost urgently, for conversations that cut through the noise. Tell me what you really think. What scares you? What do you believe about love? What changed you? These aren't just questions, they're attempts to bridge distance. There's also evidence that engaging in meaningful conversations increases well-being. A study often linked to psychologist Matthias Mill found that people who reported more substantive conversations and less small talk tended to report higher levels of happiness. Why? Because humans are meaning-making creatures. We don't just want to exchange data, we want to exchange stories. We want to feel like our existence matters in someone else's mind. But let's be honest for a second. Sometimes preferring deep conversations can become a defense mechanism. If you steer every interaction into philosophy or trauma or life purpose, you might avoid lightness, playfulness, simplicity, and that too can create imbalance. Depth is beautiful, but so is laughter about nothing. The healthiest communicators know how to dance between both. They can talk about the weather and then somehow turn it into a story about childhood summers. They can joke and then gently pivot into something meaningful. It's not about rejecting small talk completely. It's about using it as a doorway. And if you're someone who's ever felt like an alien because you'd rather discuss the meaning of life than your 5-year plan, hear this. Your depth is not a flaw. It means you value authenticity over performance, connection over convenience, understanding over impression. But it also means you have to practice patience. Not everyone opens up at the same speed. Not everyone processes life as intensely. Not everyone is comfortable sitting in emotional silence. And that's okay. The goal isn't to force depth, it's to invite it. Instead of jumping straight to, what's your biggest fear? Maybe it's, what's something you've been thinking about lately? Instead of rejecting small talk entirely, maybe you treat it like the first chapter of a book. Necessary, transitional, a way in. Because here's the bigger perspective. When you crave deep conversations, what you're really craving is resonance. You want that moment when someone says, I've never told anyone this before. You want the pause, the eye contact, the shared understanding that says we're both human here, and that's a beautiful instinct. In a world optimized for speed, scrolling, and surface impressions, choosing depth is almost rebellious. It's slow, it's intentional, it's vulnerable. So if you're watching this and thinking, that's me, I get bored so fast, I want more, maybe instead of judging yourself, you can see it differently. You're not difficult, you're discerning, you're not antisocial. You're selective with your energy. And maybe the real skill isn't learning to tolerate shallow conversations forever. Maybe it's learning to build bridges from shallow to deep, to read the room, to sense readiness, to sprinkle depth gently instead of pouring it all at once. Because when you find someone who meets you there, someone who enjoys wandering through ideas at midnight, who isn't afraid of silence, who answers honestly instead of safely, you won't feel lonely in crowded rooms anymore. You'll feel understood. And that's the thing we're all searching for anyway. So next time you're stuck in a "so, what do you do?" conversation, maybe smile, answer lightly, and then when the moment feels right, ask something that opens a window. You might be surprised how many people are secretly waiting for someone brave enough to go deeper. If this resonated with you, I'd love to know, are you team small talk, team deep talk, or somewhere in between? Drop your thoughts below. And if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind the way we connect, stick around. There's a lot more depth to dive into.